Hi, this is Lisa Rangel with Chameleon Resumes, the premier executive resume writing company, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about, should you have an executive resume summary at the top of your resume or not? So this question has come up in recent months because, let's face it, there's not a lot of space on a two-page executive resume. So anytime you can rethink how you're doing things and aim to conserve space, it's always a good thing. Reinventing the process a little bit for what is needed in a current marketplace is never a bad thing. So let's revisit if you should be including an executive resume summary or if you shouldn't be needing one. So the first thing that I ask you to consider is who you are sending it to. The answer to this question of if you should have an executive resume summary or not really is, it depends. And it is dependent on who you are sending it to. So there's basically three areas that you're going to be sending, three types of resumes, correspondences that will include your resume that you will be sending, and each of them can have a different approach. So first is about 60 to 65% of hires happen through networking. By networking, I mean employee referrals, social media connections, personal contacts, and not just those immediate first degree people that you know, but the second degree, third degree, fourth degree, and so on. And in many of those scenarios, once you move past your first degree connections, your reputation is not preceding you. Right? If your friend, your first degree connection passes you on to their second degree connection, there's a little bit of an introduction there. But now if that second degree connection is forwarding your resume to a third degree connection, there isn't really an introduction, there really isn't, a vouch for situation in the form of a recommendation. Your resume is doing the selling. Your resume is the reputation that needs to be put forth, and your reputation isn't preceding that document in any way. So in that scenario, the networking scenario, right, option one is what I'm labeling that, I would say to include an executive resume summary, because an executive resume summary is where you are going to outline what you're looking for, the correlating achievements that show that you're qualified for that type of role, and in just some visual keyword confirmations, keyword optimization that will incentivize the reader to keep reading. And when you're in a scenario where your reputation is not preceding you, that resume needs to sell for you, 100%. And a resume summary, executive resume summary, helps do that. So anytime you're networking and sending an email that is attaching your resume to it, even if you know the person you're sending it to, I would include a resume that has an executive resume summary. Short, and at the end of this video, I'll outline what should be included in an executive resume summary. But basically for now, for this first category of correspondence, I would say just keep the resume summary short, never more than really like a third of the page, if not shorter, and have it really be concise as to what you're looking for, what type of job you're looking for, and the correlating achievements and wins that you have, with some prominent keywords that will support the visual confirmation of reading your document or wanting to keep reading your document. Because again, when you're in situations where your reputation is not preceding you, which is a lot of networking situations, you want to make sure that that resume is selling for you in scenarios where either you personally are not selling yourself or your contact isn't selling you and vouching for you. So that's category number one. So the second category of how hires happen is through job boards. Job board postings, job board postings, or more aggregate type of job boards like Indeed and LinkedIn Jobs and whatnot. And here, I would say to include a resume summary here as well. Again, short, sweet, and I'll get into more of what that should include at the latter part of the video. But again, here, although you're submitting typically under a job posting, so your resume is within that category of job that you're submitting to, and so in theory, the person reading it should know what job you're applying to, what job that you want. what job that you are going for. And so in theory, they should have that context. But depending on how that company has the applicant tracking system set up, they may be great at tracking what job you submitted to and what job your resume came through, or it may be poorly set up and your resume is going into a portal. It may or may not be tagged to a particular job. Or if you submit to more than one job within that organization, which happens and is viable in many cases, because sometimes at a large company, some jobs are similar and you may submit to more than one. If you submit to more than one, it may tag you in that applicant tracking system as being someone who's interested in all those jobs. But now the resume is going to be viewed in a few different contexts of the different jobs that you've submitted to. So I would include a summary. So at the minimum, if your resume is being viewed without the context in which you submitted to that job, your resume again is standing alone, making it clear what you want, and the resume summary is what's going to help do that. If the situation I'm trying to avoid for you in this second correspondence category of submitting to job boards is if you don't include a resume summary, you don't outline what job you're looking for, and you're dependent on it being properly categorized within that applicant tracking system. Once you submit it, if for any reason that applicant tracking system on the other side isn't tagging your resume to a job, or if you've applied to a number of jobs, your resume is now being tagged to a number of positions that you're interested in. It's without the context of a summary, it's hard to know what you particularly want, and it's harder to then digest your achievements from each employer in the context of the jobs that you're targeting. So you make it easier by having a resume summary at the top, this nice little umbrella in which then all of your wins and employment experiences are then viewed under and digested under. So it just makes it easier. The third category where your resume may be considered or you may submit it to is with a third-party recruiter. Now, here is where you may not need a resume summary. I wouldn't say automatically take it off, because you still need to submit it to the third-party recruiter. They need to know what you're looking for. But what I will tell you as a former third-party recruiter is they will typically take off that summary when they are going to present you to their company client for positions that they are working on and recruiting talent for. So you want to make sure that when you're sending your resume to a third-party recruiter, if you've already written your resume with a summary, it's not necessarily important to take it off. But if you find that you're doing a customization for a particular recruiter and you want to include some experience that maybe you haven't included elsewhere, or it's making it really tight to put in this additional experience to customize the resume for a particular role that a third-party recruiter has, and you have to delete some information, then maybe deleting the resume summary is going to be the option for you, because know that that third-party recruiter, if you have the talent that their client needs, they're going to send your resume to the client. They're going to typically take off the summary, and they're going to put the resume in a format that their company typically uses to send resumes, or just send it without the summary, because they want to make sure that they are going to be coupling your resume with an introduction from them. Like it's almost like they're acting as your broker, they're acting as your representative, and they are going to in turn introduce you, and their influence is going to affect you getting an interview in addition to your experiences. So again, that's a situation where your reputation isn't necessarily preceding you, or your reputation's preceding you in the form of that recruiter vouching for you. So that's really the delineation in terms of how you're going to decide whether to include a resume summary or not. And in most cases, you will be including a resume summary. Where you might decide not to is in situations where someone is acting as essentially a broker or a representative of you. And that's usually a third-party recruiter situation. So, but in most cases, where your reputation is not preceding you, and that document needs to sell you, you want to make sure that it stands alone and can articulate exactly what you're looking for in the next role at that particular company that you're applying to. So that's sort of the litmus test. And as far as what should go into an executive resume summary, again, it really shouldn't be longer than the top third of the page, top quarter of the page. It should have the title of the job that you're targeting. I wouldn't use something that's so broad or not a legitimate title typically, because it makes it hard for people to find you or know what you want once they read it, and they do find you. So I would be specific about the type of title that you're looking for, and a brief sentence or two, or that doesn't take up more than 2-3 lines, outlining what you're looking for. A couple of achievements, 1 or 2 at the max, that outline how you have achieved in that role that you're targeting, and then some core competencies or keywords that visually confirm to the reader that you have the topical experience that they're looking for, and will motivate them to keep reading. That's really the goal of the summary, is to validate the eyeballs that are reading your document, that they should be reading your document, and motivating them to want to keep reading. That's the goal of the summary. So I hope this video helps you determine whether or not you should include a resume summary on your resume. And for most executive resumes, the answer is yes, but at least we've outlined a scenario where if you're going to leave it off to make room for pertinent experience, you at least know why. So again, this is Lisa Rangel, Chameleon Resumes, and thank you so much for watching. If you think this will help someone, I'm going to ask you to share it. If you've liked the video, I'm going to ask you to like it. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or message or comment below. I read and reply to every message and every email. Thanks so much. Have a great day.